morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We are halfway through our week officially. These weeks sure are flying, aren't they? So today we're going to read the next 2 chapters of our Magic Treehouse book and do another word problem. And yeah, we'll keep going from there. By the way, the plant is still growing really nicely, so that's exciting. So yeah, anyways. Okay, vocabulary for today. Remember, I say, you say. Okay, first word is curious. Curious means eager to know or learn something. So when you want to know more information and you're asking a lot of questions, you're being a curious person. The next word is fog. Fog is a thick cloud of water that's basically close to the ground. It's not an actual cloud like a rain cloud or a thunder cloud, but it basically functions kind of like a cloud. Again, today's sort of, I'm looking out my window, it's kind of a foggy day outside because there's that water droplets that are close to the ground. Habitat. Habitat is just basically the home of a plant or an animal. We talked a lot about habitats this year actually in science. Headlock is basically how you can hold somebody, kind of get them like this so that they can't really move. The next word is nightmare, which is like a really scary or creepy dream. Then we have perch, which is a thing that a bird sits on. It can also be a way of sitting on something that's narrow or thin. And then the last word is proud. That means when you feel really proud of, like you're satisfied with what you've done, whether it's making an AR goal, doing something, baking a new cake, something like that. So let's do a quick review of our book. So if you want to pause the video here and kind of think back to what we talked about yesterday, and then you can hit play and I'll tell you my little review. So yesterday, Jack and Annie met up with the baby gorilla, and of course, Annie being Annie, she named him because she names all the animals they meet. She named him Boo Boo, and they were playing together, Annie and the gorilla. They were running around, and they climbed a tree, and they made noises, and they ate some bark, which is a little weird. And then the gorilla swung from one tree to another, and when Annie tried to do it, what happened? Well, she fell. So she fell to the ground. She wasn't hurt, but she got what's called winded. It's when you get like the breath kind of knocked out of you and you just have to take a minute to kind of breathe. Sometimes that happens to you all on the playground if you fall or something like that. And so Jack was like, well, I'm going to go back and get all of our stuff that I had left, and then I'll meet back up with you. And so he goes to get all of their stuff, and he gets lost in the forest because it's dark and it's raining, and he kind of gets turned around. So we had left off with Jack being by himself, kind of sitting underneath a tree, huddled, and waiting for morning to come so he could try to find Jack and Annie. He is Jack. He could try to find Annie again. So we're going to pick up, we were on chapter 5, which I believe is called Silverback. And so we're going to read chapters 5 and 6 today. So if you want to follow along, if you have it at home, it is book number 20, page number 28. Okay. Silverback. Jack felt something tugging on his sleeve. He opened his eyes. Boo Boo. The small gorilla was staring at him in the dawn light. Jack stood up. His arms and legs felt stiff and achy, and his wet clothes were stuck to his skin. He looked through the cloud forest to see misty light shining through the tree branches. Where's Annie? He asked the small gorilla. Boo Boo waved her arms. Then she bounded off between the trees. Bounded. Jack pulled on his pack and followed. As the small gorilla led his way through the cloud forest, her head bobbed above the leafy plants. Finally, she stopped before a row of shrubs. Jack took a few steps forward and peered over the shrubs. Shrubs are like, kind of like bushes. They're like a synonym for bushes. Oh man, he whispered. Large, dark figures were sleeping in an open, grassy area. Gorillas! There were at least 10 of them. Some slept on their backs, some slept on their bellies. The gorillas were all shapes and sizes. The smallest was a baby sleeping in its mother's arms. The biggest was a giant with silver and black fur. Jack pulled the book out of his pack. He found a chapter on gorillas and read, Mountain gorillas live together in family groups. The leader of the family is a large male called a silverback because he has silver fur on his back and on his shoulders. Gorillas do not hunt other animals. They mainly eat the plant growth of the forest. They are known to be shy and gentle giants. Shy, gentle giants, Jack repeated. That sounded good. He peered over the shrubs again. Boo Boo waved at him. She was standing at the far edge of the clearing, and she pointed to something in the tall grass. Annie was fast asleep in the grass. Jack didn't know what to do. If he called her name, the gorillas would wake up. He had only one choice. He had to sneak over to her. Jack put his book in his pack. He pushed past the shrubs and stepped into the clearing. His heart was pounding, but he thought of the words from the book, Shy, Gentle Giants. As he started towards Annie, he heard a grunt. The giant gorilla with silver fur opened his eyes. When the gorilla saw Jack, he sat up. Jack stopped in his tracks. The gorilla just glared. This giant didn't seem shy or gentle at all. Jack saw a stick lying on the ground and picked it up just in case. Jack's stick made the gorilla growl. He stood up. He was very tall and very wide. Jack dropped his stick. Boo Boo ran behind the tree. The silverback growled again. His long, shaggy arms touched the ground. His fingers curled under. Walking on his knuckles, he stepped towards Jack. Jack stepped back. The gorilla stepped forward again. Jack stepped back again. The gorilla kept stepping forward and Jack kept stepping back until he was stepped out of the clearing. But the silverback just kept coming. Jack stumbled through the brush until he came to a thick wall of plants. The gorilla kept coming and Jack couldn't move back anymore. Hi, he said nervously. I come in. Before Jack could say peace, the giant gorilla went crazy. He hooted and leapt to his feet. Jack crouched down in panic. The gorilla kept hooting. He grabbed a tree limb and shook it wildly. He ripped leaves from its branches. He gnashed his teeth. He cupped his hands. He beat his chest. "Rah!" he roared. "Rah!" The gorilla dropped on all fours. He charged back and forth past Jack. Then he threw himself on his belly. He began bashing the ground with his palms. He bashed and bashed and bashed. Jack scrambled on his hands and knees over to a tree trunk. He hid behind the trunk, hugging his head. He waited for the maniac gorilla to find him and tear him to pieces. Chapter 6. Good morning, gorillas. I should say that to you guys when I come on here. I should call you guys. No, okay. The pounding ended. There was silence, a long silence. Jack opened his eyes and peeked around the tree. The silverback was sitting on the ground. His lips were curled in a smile, and he looked pleased with himself. What do you think that means to look pleased with himself? Was his whole act a fake? Jack wondered. Jack didn't know whether to be scared or to laugh. The only thing he did know was he still had to get to Annie. Jack pulled out the research book, and he found the gorilla chapter again. He read, "To get safely close to gorillas in the wild, it's wise to act like a gorilla yourself. Crouch down and rest on your knuckles like a gorilla. Keep your head down and act friendly." Jack picked up his research book. He put his pack on his back and went down to his knees. Jack took a deep breath. He smiled a friendly smile. Pressing down on his knuckles, he moved out from behind the tree. His fingers hurt as he walked on them. The silverback grunted, but Jack didn't look up. He just kept smiling a friendly smile as he crawled through the brush towards the clearing. When he got to the edge of the clearing, he glanced back. The giant gorilla was following him. He was frowning, but he didn't seem like he was going to attack. Jack kept going and moved into the clearing. Then he stopped. More gorillas were waking up. A large gorilla hugged Boo Boo like to comfort her. When Boo Boo saw Jack, she screeched joyfully. All the other gorillas turned to look at him and made nervous sounds. Jack's heart pounded, but he just smiled his friendly smile and kept on crawling. He crawled around the gorillas and over to Annie. "Wake up," he said, shaking her. Annie yawned and opened her eyes. "Oh, hi," she said. "Are you okay?" asked Jack. "Sure," she said. She sat up and looked around, and then she gasped. The gorillas were staring at Jack and Annie with bright, darting eyes. The silverback stared the hardest. "Oh, wow," said Annie, and a joyful smile crossed her face. Oh, full. "Good morning, gorillas." Chapter 7, Eating Out. And that's where we're going to stop for today. Alrighty, so we will continue tomorrow. We will read chapters 7 and 8 tomorrow morning. Also, happy April Fool's Day! I should have thought of an April Fool's joke to tell you, but I don't have one. I don't know. I don't have an April Fool's joke. I'm sorry. I'm fresh out. Okay, so now we're going to do our word problem. So give me 1 second. I got to turn my camera around. Okay, so our problem today says, Darla ate 15 Skittles from the jar. She counts and finds that there are 4 Skittles left. How many Skittles were in the jar before she ate some? So Darla ate 15 Skittles from the jar. She counts and finds out that there are 4 Skittles left. How many Skittles were in the jar before she ate some? So go ahead and hit pause on the video, solve the problem, and then come back and see if you're correct. Okay, so the way we would solve this problem, let me make sure my pen has ink, is she ate 15 Skittles from the jar. So if you eat Skittles, you're doing a subtraction thing, right? You're subtracting Skittles. So it says how many Skittles were in the jar before she ate some. So we don't know how many were in the jar to start. So we have some number of Skittles minus the 15 that she ate leaves us with 4 Skittles. So the Skittles leftover is 4. But we started with a total number here. So we don't know what her total is because there's nothing there, right? Because we're subtracting in this case. So we're starting with a total, subtracting away, and being left with a part. So our total is blank. These are our 2 parts. So part, and then we are looking for our whole. So in order to solve this problem, if our total goes first in a subtraction problem, then we know that that's going to be our biggest number, which means we have to add these 2 together to get our total number. So we're just going to add up 15 plus 4, and then we get 5 plus 4 equals 9, and 1 plus nothing equals 1. So the total would be 19 pancakes. Alrighty, well, you guys have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. I'm going to go get started on my morning, and enjoy your first day of April, April Fool's Day. Alright guys, see you later.